Hello, everyone. I'm John with Roadkill Incorporated, and today we are doing part 2 of testing 131 aluminum MacBook Pros. That's right, the second video, the MacBooks Strike Back. Sorry, that was really stupid. Anyway, yeah, I was super surprised that people really liked the first video. I was assuming they'd think it was boring and badly made. I thought the number one complaint would be that my video was all shaky and unprofessional, but no one mentioned that. So I'll be sure to give you yet more shaky, unprofessional video. Anyway, in the first video, we only got through these ones on top here, the 17-inch. Wait, what? Where'd they go? Oh, they moved over here. Okay, so yeah, we only got through the 17s, and there are about 100 15-inch Pros left to get through. A lot of computers, and I don't want to do a part 3. So this time around, I'm getting really serious. Instead of 3 chargers, I have 5 chargers set up, so I can do 5 computers at the same time. In addition, I've got 5 drives now instead of 3. One of them being this beautiful HyperX Savage. It's really heavy. I'm sure that will make it work so much better. And I've even invested in super sticky Post-it notes because the ones I was using before would just kind of fall off the computer. So this is how serious I am about getting this done in this video. So people asked me about these external drives. Most of them are just a case, just a simple enclosure you can get for like $6 on eBay or $500 now with the tariffs. But yeah, I wouldn't really recommend these. What I would recommend is something like this. This is just a cable. It's a USB to IDE cable. You plug right into the drive and you're good. I would also recommend for external drives, use SSDs because rotational drives, the old school mechanical drives, they don't like moving around like this. That causes them to fail. So in addition to being super slow, they'll fail more quickly. So just get some cheap 60 gig SATA SSDs and you'll be in good shape. Additionally, it's very easy to make more of these external drives. You just plug the drive into a machine, format it, dump the Snow Leopard image to it, exactly like I've shown doing with these MacBook Pros. Then you option boot to it, set it up as a new computer with a profile, and then you can copy Super Duper Coconut Battery and the Snow Leopard image to the desktop folder of the new drive. And then you just boot up and you've got the 3 files right there on the desktop. The best way to do this would probably be for me to make an image of one of the external drives in Super Duper. Then I would just dump down the image and I wouldn't have to set up a profile or copy the files over. But apparently I prefer the more complicated method. So people have asked me, John, why aren't you using a NetBoot server? You're a refurbisher. Why aren't you using one of the advanced software tools out there? And first off, I'll say this is a NetBoot server. You can see how often I use it. Yeah, the thing is, the more advanced tools, software like Blanco, stuff like that, is great when you have 1,000 computers that you get in and you know that 95% of them are good. But when you're dealing with computers that, for the most part, don't power on or might need RAM or have fundamental repair issues, it's really not the most effective way to go to plug them into a system that expects a computer to basically be working. The external drive is the more efficient way to go about that. And even a tool like Blanco, they recognize that. They let you build an external drive based on their software. Tools that NetBoot can be amazing. I've seen facilities where they connect 200 computers to Ethernet, power them on, they're automatically securely wiped, they're automatically tested, imaged, their diagnostics go straight to a server, so they have that there for auditing purposes. It can be pretty amazing if you've got computers that are suitable for that situation. I will say, though, that it's super expensive. A lot of these tools, like Blanco, last time I checked, are $5 a use. So if you have a computer that's worth $10, it's very hard to justify $5 on that computer. In fact, I would say institutions that insist on using a tool like Blanco and paying $5 per computer, they tend to scrap a lot of machines because it moves the line and it makes an old computer that's not worth much money no longer viable, because a $5 expense, that's a lot. And the enemy of reuse is expenses going into the process. You have to stay super lean and cheap in order for it to be viable for these old machines to be worth processing at all. And anyway, it's not like what I'm showing you here is some sort of normal refurbishing process. These machines are at the very bottom of the U-curve, and most recyclers shred them without a thought. It's not even stuff I would refurbish if my goal was to make money for my business, because these are only worth scrap value right now, and it'll be a long time before they come up the other side of the U-curve and have value as vintage products. You know, by the way, that that's happened when they become desirable because they run the old systems and because they have the old hardware. You know it's vintage when the disadvantages become features. Before we get started, I wanted to mention I tried Linux on one of these machines and it works pretty well. I asked AI, hey, what's the best Linux install for an Aluminum Pro? It recommended a version of Ubuntu. So I downloaded that, I put it on a USB drive, I option booted to the USB drive, the installation went really well, and here we are. It's not super fast, but this machine has a mechanical hard drive and only 4 gigs of RAM, so that's something we could improve a little bit. But yeah, it functions as you would expect, and it's a reasonably current operating system compared to Snow Leopard. I guess the typical problem with this situation is we're all so spoiled. We all have 15 computers, 15 ways to do all of the stuff that we could do on this machine, and most of them are better than this machine. So enough ranting. This isn't supposed to be a rant video. What am I doing? If you haven't seen the first video, you might want to start there because I go over a lot of the basics that I'm not going to cover again. So yeah, let's get going. There's the counter in the corner, and we'll get the first 5 15-inch Aluminum Pros up on the desk. Okay, first 5 set up, sticky notes firmly attached, and this guy powered on when I connected it to power because it doesn't have a top case. As you can see, it has some screen burn. You've got this sort of yellowish stuff around here. That is fairly common with these. Sometimes it fades. If you leave it on for a half hour, it will go away. But anyway, let's try 27. Huh. Light goes out. 28. Whoa! Look at that. That is a bad screen. We've got some... This is inside the screen. So we've got some liquid inside the screen. Yeah, obviously that screen is not going to be recoverable. This guy booted up. Look at that. And 30 and 31. 31 has a battery. We can see the amber light there. And those two are both powering on. That's very cool. So 27 here does not want to power on. So I flipped over 27. It had this third-party generic RAM in it. Third-party RAM can work, but there are many subtle differences between RAM, even if the specs are technically the same. So I put in a Samsung module that I know is good for MacBooks, comes with them. And I've tried this slot. Let's try the other slot. So yeah, same behavior. I'm going to call this a GPU issue. It would not power on with known good RAM in either slot. These guys are all booted up. Actually, the top case on this is not attached, so I'm going to see if I can connect it here. The problem with Aluminum Pros, there's the connector. You'd think they'd all have the same connector, right? I mean, how hard would it be to just make all of the top cases work on all of the machines? But no, there are like 3 different variations of top case connector. So let's see if this is the compatible one. Should never do this, of course. Never plug it in while it's on. And unfortunately, this is the wrong connector. This is a very small one, so that leads me to believe this is a 2006. Okay, plugged in a mouse. This will at least let us get the specs of the machine. And as I expected, yeah, it is a 2006, the high end of 2006, 2.16 gigahertz Core Duo, not even a Core 2 Duo. These two we will boot off of external drives in option mode. Whoa, look at that. We've got the squashed apple. That tells you it's in a super low resolution. Reset the PRAM, it'll reset to the default resolution of the machine. I checked the specs of this. It's a 2.4 with 2 gigs of RAM and no hard drive. This one, bad screen. And here we have number 30, also a 2016 with 1 gig of RAM and a 100 gig hard drive. And 31 is booted up. It is a 2.33, 2 gigabytes, 200 gig hard drive. Okay, so I'll format the drives that I can format. While that's happening, I'll open SuperDuper, choose the internal drive, choose the disk image, which is sitting on the desktop, Snow Leopard, copy, and there we go. That's imaging. So number 30 has a really stupid problem. So I tried to enter the password to dump the image, but the 2 key was not working. I took the 2 key off, and it's got glue residue on it, and you can see that they tried to use super glue to stick the plunger mechanism on there. So 2 is not working on this computer. And due to the fact that I was silly enough to put a password on the computer, I can't hit the 2 key. Somewhere in system preferences, there is also a visual keyboard where you see the keyboard on the screen and you can click on an individual key. So I could hit the 2 and then that would let me in. So that's the first 5. Not a great start. We have a GPU issue. We have a bad screen. We're missing a top case. We have a bad 2 key. And 31 is the only computer that got to the point of being imaged and ready to go. So setting up the next 5, and this is an interesting example of a recycler being too impatient to use a screwdriver and take off the memory cover. You can see the screws are still intact there. They used a screwdriver or something to just pry this back and take out the memory, and the memory sockets appear to be a little bit loose. I will test this, but I don't know. I would bet that this machine will not work at all due to the memory socket having been destroyed due to this incompetence that we're seeing here. And yeah, in fact, the RAM will not even stay in the socket. You can tell that there's like a curvature of the slot, so it will not stay in. Wow, and I couldn't even get the stickies on these before the problems with these 5 just started screaming out at me. This one is an obvious GPU defect. It's kind of subtle, but you can see the lines, the vertical lines. Those shouldn't be there. So yeah, like I said in the previous video, if you see lines on the screen or geometric patterns, absolutely a GPU defect issue. I don't even know this is a 2008, but I'm willing to bet. Yeah, there we go, 2.4 gigahertz. Okay, finally have sticky notes on these 5. There's the GPU defect machine. So I'll power these on. Here is 32. I noticed that 32 has a very sort of glossy, I think that's a screen cover, like a protection cover. Yeah, it's just glossier than a screen would normally be. And then it has all of these odd scratches on it. So that guy's booting up. 33 is booting up. 34. Ooh, 34 has a bad screen. Kind of pretty. And then 35, this has the unfortunate RAM cover. I put a stick of RAM in it anyway just to see what happens. It's working. Okay, so that RAM slot is not bent so badly that it can't work to some extent, although the RAM, I would suspect, is very loose in there, so it's still a problem. And then we have the GPU defect. I'm going to connect an external drive to this one to just see if it can boot to the desktop. 99% of GPU defect machines will not boot to the desktop, so we'll see how this one does. Oh shoot, this one is showing a picture of a family, so I will power that off and I will connect an external and wipe that drive. So this one booted to a picture of a family, so I am booting to the external now, and I will wipe that drive. And sure enough, you can see the lines. You can see the garbled text. So yeah, right when I tell you that you see lines and that's absolutely a GPU defect, of course, we get one that is booting to the desktop and behaving okay. Usually when the GPU is unstable, it throws it off and it won't boot, won't function normally. This one is. So this makes me wonder if this is a GPU defect, maybe a video cable connection issue or a bad screen. Hard to tell. The fact that the computer seems to function kind of pushes me away from the GPU defect diagnosis. Over here, number 33 booted to an OS install, so that's cool. I will boot that to an external. And this guy, 32, we've got the pinwheel coming and going, little bit of screen burn. I think with this one, we're probably looking at a failing hard drive. I noticed also it's a European or Canadian keyboard with the small enter key. Okay, so interesting thing with this one, I noticed the cap lock light is not on, and option mode did not seem to engage when I held down the option key. So I think the keyboard is defective or not connected. The top case is screwed on, so I'm not going to get into that right now. So we just get into this loop where I think the bad hard drive is failing to get to the desktop. So bad keys, bad hard drive, that's where we'll leave that. 33 is looking good, 2.4 gigahertz. 160 gig drive. I'm not going to show the imaging process anymore. I'm not going to show anything I've already gone through. I just want to show you the more interesting elements as we find new problems with these computers. There's the screen. It's brightened up a little bit. It was dark when we first powered it on. So broken screen is where 34 ends for now. And yeah, the bent RAM socket is surprising us. 320 gig hard drive, that's really a big drive for a 2.33. So who knows, maybe there's hope for this one yet. And then there is 36 with the GPU lines, or so I thought, seems to be functioning fine. The lines are very narrow, whereas GPU lines are usually more pronounced. So yeah, maybe this is a bad screen or a bad video connection, that sort of thing. On to the next 5. I can't seem to hold 5 in one hand. They're pretty heavy. Okay, 27 to 31. Here we go. Another Canadian keyboard. I had a Canadian distributor, so it makes sense that we'd see a lot of Canadian keyboards. And wow, that's kind of pretty. I like this deep blue here. I make glitch art. You can see it on my Instagram, which is at RDKLINC, Roadkill Incorporated. What I do is I bring my photography up behind broken screens and GPU defects. So if this would have spaces in it where photos could be visible, this could be a candidate for something I would take pictures of. I sort of layer the broken screens and photography if you're interested. Okay, 28. Oh, 28 is a broken screen as well. Look at that. It's sort of warming up. You get the light coming in. And 29. We have a light and we have nothing on the screen. When you have a light and nothing on the screen, you're not going to have a light and something on the screen at the same time. So what that means is it's not trying to put anything on the screen because there's an issue that needs to be resolved. So I'll try swapping the RAM around. It could be a GPU problem. And here's 30. Oh, we have a bad screen. Yeah, so this is a good section and then a bad section. Sometimes this can be a crimp in the hinge or a bad video cable. Sometimes you can resolve this just disconnecting, reconnecting, that sort of thing. Wow, more Canadian keyboards, French Canadian keyboards. And 31. Come on. Oh, 31 is booting. Okay. And look at that, 31 booted to a fresh install of the OS. I will wipe it just to be sure everything is good, but that's a good sign. And here we have 30 we've got the good screen portion and then the bad screen. Let's see if we can get an about this Mac. You can see it's in French there. Don't want to dare pronouncing that, but it is a 2.2 gigahertz Core 2 Duo and 4 gigs of RAM. Okay, round two on these. Obviously, these have broken screens, so we're going to leave those there. This one, remember, it had the light and nothing on the screen. It had one memory module in one slot, the other one empty, so I put a known good memory module in the other slot that wasn't populated and took out the first module. So we're testing both slots and we'll see what happens. Light again. Okay, so known good memory module did not work in either slot. So at this point, I will conclude GPU on this guy. This one here, not much we can do very easily to wipe the drive, so I'm going to leave that as is. And this one, 31, this booted to Snow Leopard, and I'm going to put a fresh install on it just to be sure. But in the meantime, we can see it's a 2.33 with 120 gig drive, and it has a battery. We haven't talked about a battery in a while. This one, by the numbers, is very good. Practically 100% of original capacity. It's 9% charged, 11 load cycles. That means 11 charges all the way up and 11 discharges. So the numbers are very good. As 1,000 people pointed out, and as I actually mentioned in my previous video too, you can't trust these numbers when you first power on a machine that's been sitting for 10 years. It's like when you've been asleep and you initially wake up. You think about a dream you had, you're like, oh my God, this dream is real. And then it's like, oh wait, no, that dream is not real. These machines have numbers in them that were populated the last time this machine was alive and working. So the current reality may not be what you see. The only way to know if this is real is to charge it all the way up and then let it discharge all the way down and see if that resets the numbers to something different. It very well could stay the same, and this could be a really great battery, or we could see something completely different here. It could have, 20% of its original charge. This one also has a battery, but we're just seeing the system numbers. We're not seeing coconut battery. It says 81%. So that's not enough information to diagnose this battery. Actually, I saw it go from like 50% to 80% just in doing this. So that's not a good sign. You don't charge 30% of the battery in 5 minutes unless you have a very diminished capacity battery. So I would guess this battery is not in great shape. Another way to think of this, imagine if you have a fuel tank, but it's only a 1-gallon fuel tank. Well, you can fill it up really quickly. And as you drive down the street, you think, hey, I've got a full tank, but in 20 miles, you're out of gas. So same thing here. If the tank, so to speak, fills up by 40% in a matter of minutes, that tends to show us that we've got a very small fuel tank and that the capacity of this battery is severely diminished. On to the next 5. Oh, that's interesting. The battery has been ripped out of the battery. Look at that. Okay, got 42 through 46 set up, and hopefully I got my numbering right this time. So 42, yeah, powering on. You didn't hear the chime when that powered on. One thing we can do to restore the chime is reset the PRAM, because what this means is that the volume is set to a level below the default. But resetting the PRAM resets all the various characteristics of the computer back to their factory default. So PRAM. Okay, so that worked. You now have the default sound volume. That works for screen brightness, that works for sound, that works for screen resolution, and a bunch of other elements. So 43 here, I wanted to show you, this is a good example of metal in the DC-in. MagSafe is magnetic, of course. It attracts metal fragments, and you can get that out with a magnet like this. Let's see how well this works. Not necessarily easy to do with one hand. You can see the metal fragments coming out. Oh, and that booted to a person's name. Okay, so I had to put down the phone and clean the DC in. Not easy with one hand. It's not perfect. You can see it at kind of an angle. There were some metal fragments I had to pick out with tweezers. This is a very common issue because recyclers are just filled with dirt and it gets in there like that. I've kind of cheated on this one. I tried powering it on and I got no response. But I wanted to show you something else while we're looking at magnet-related things. So the clasps on these machines are here. There are two of them, two little hooks that hang down. You can see them like that. So if you ever try to open one of these up and press the button and it's just not really doing anything, once you do get it open, you can adjust these hooks. You can kind of grab them with your fingers and bend them up or down, whichever way they need to go in order to release properly. If you can't get it open, one thing you can do is sort of slide a razor blade in there. It'll be down like this, and you can put in a razor blade that just kind of pushes it to the left or pushes it to the right. Okay, so like I said, I cheated on this one a little bit here. It's kind of a mess. It doesn't have a hard drive. They saved the rail, which is nice. They often do this, put the parts in a bag. Problem is the parts get all over the board and cause issues. One thing I wanted to show you with this, because it didn't respond to the top case, I'm going to jump it using the power on pads. I actually have a website called poweronpads.com. It's part of roadkillinc.com. And I've documented the power on pad locations of many laptops. And once again, basically most MacBooks have two silver pads on the board that are just kind of an alternate power buttons. So if you take the keyboard away, you can jump the computer with the power on pads. And that's useful because you can know if the problem is the keyboard and power button assembly or the board itself. So on this machine, the power on pads are right there in the center. You can see where it says PWR. And then there are the two silver pads above it. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see the fan and the pads at the same time. Let's see if I can do this. There we go. Took a little bit of effort. But now the computer is powered on and we're still not getting video. So it might be a GPU issue with this one. We have a light, which means it's not trying to put video on the screen. So I'll do this again with the other slot. Okay, so yeah, same result with this one, unfortunately. So I'm going to write that off as a GPU issue. I don't think I pointed out, this is the airport card, the internal Airport Extreme card. Just as there are several different keyboard assemblies, there are several different airport cards. Some have 2 terminals, some have 3. So yeah, all kinds of fun. This is the power board, and this is the logic board. So if you need to replace the power board, it's not fun. It really is not fun. There are a whole bunch of screws, a whole bunch of cables tightly packed in there. One of my least favorite things to do in the world is to remove the power board. Sometimes you have to, lift the motherboard out to get it out and to get it in. It's just a mess. Okay, well that took longer than I had hoped. This one I am booting to an external drive so I can image it. It's looking good. Wrote GPU on here. 44. Needs a mouse. Finger pad does not work. And all along I thought this was a trackpad, but it's a finger pad. Wow. Okay, so we'll try that one. Ooh. Okay. Looking good. Here we have 45. Yeah, so they removed the cells from the battery. Yeah, I've seen 10,000 examples of this. It just goes to show that when things are considered to be trash, the employees destroy things for fun. It's not even a matter of knowing better. They know better. They're just bored. I've seen people throw computers against the wall just to watch them explode. It's like that Natural Born Killers quote. They're not crazy, they just don't give a damn.
Mickey and Mallory know the difference between right and wrong. They just don't give a damn.
And yeah, bored, low-paid employees at recyclers do whatever they can to amuse themselves. Here's 45. Okay, seems to be powering on. And 46. Powering on as well. I also didn't hear a chime, so let's reset the PRAM. Fortunately, I can do this with one hand. Okay. Okay, looking good. Round two on all of these. 42 is powered up. Looks like a good machine, 2.16 core duo. This is the GPU issue machine that we talked about. 44 has the bad finger pad, and in fact, the whole keyboard did not work. It would not trigger option mode holding down the option key, so I connected an Apple keyboard and mouse and was able to power on, hold down option, get into option mode, boot to the external. And aside from the top case situation, it is a 2.4 Core 2 Duo with a 250 gig drive. And this is a good opportunity to show you a bad battery. You can see the numbers just do not register, and you have a green light. So it's worth letting this sit for a while, but in my experience, if you have a green light right from the start and bad numbers, it's probably just a bad battery. Next, 45, looking good. It's another 2.4 with 4 gigs of RAM. Very cool. And 46 is a 2.2 with 2 gigs and 120 gig hard drive. So that does it for this set. And I hate to say it, but I think I've got to leave it here for this video. We're already up to 30 minutes and, I got to get going. I've got some videos I have to return or they're going to hit me with late fees. You know how that works. But what a failure on my part. Only 20 machines out of 100, even less than the first video. It's because of all the ranting, I think. If I left that out, I could do twice as much. And people don't like the ranting anyway. My rant videos get like 1,000 views. Once again, let me know if you want more. The first one got like 12,000 views, which for me is good. So I'll let you vote with your views, I think. I'm running at a pace of a full video every 2 weeks, plus 2 shorts a week. That seems pretty doable. I was making a full video a week, but the stress of that was a little much. And, it should be fun to make videos. It shouldn't be an anxiety-ridden race to meet a deadline. So, anyway, thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you later.